What happens when Voddie Baucham sits down with Ben Shapiro and discuss a crucial mistake that a lot of religious leaders have made and maybe are making right now? Too many people are falling for. That's exactly what happened. And this was an interesting conversation to watch. I don't agree with Voddie Baucham on everything, but I tell you what, this interview, he was in his bag. This was a great interview. And this part specifically, when it comes to some of the stuff we saw happen in the 80s, some of the stuff we're seeing happen now with megachurch culture and the counterintuitive nature that this does a disservice and how this does a disservice to people.
What religious leadership started off by doing was worrying because there were kind of members of the flock who were on the fringes of the flock, and they started wandering away. And so they followed those members of the flock into the mountains, and they worried so much about making sure that they bring those people back in that they decided the only way to actually keep these people members of the flock is to broaden essentially the fence.
What's interesting here is that it sounds like Ben Shapiro is almost echoing Jesus. You have 99 sheep, one wanders away. Jesus, the good shepherd, goes after the one sheep. Ben Shapiro is kind of tweaking this because Ben Shapiro is not a believer in Jesus, and he's aligning this more towards watering down the standards of what the institution of faith is living by.
But if you definitionally change the fence, then even though this member of the flock is way the hell away, they're still part of the flock because the fence is now 5 miles wide. And so the idea is that they're so focused on the exceptions to the rules, they forget about the maintenance of the rules. And in the process, what they end up with is being able to titularly say, we have lots of people who adhere to our version of the church, but nobody who actually goes to church, nobody who actually follows any rules, no actual interior coherence. We understand everybody sins. We understand we all fall short of the grace of God, but the rule doesn't change just for you. We're so concerned with if we say that to somebody, the person may run.
I would think Ben Shapiro is a student of culture. And I would be fairly certain that he's tapped into the whole Hillsong and all the shenanigans happening. But to his point, you don't always need to lower the bar. Because when you lower the bar for something, you water it down. Sometimes you need to raise the bar, especially for young men. But if you listen to the critique of some of the folks who have left the faith, whether they're liberal or conservative, the critique does seem to be, I feel like Christians weren't behaving the way Christians should behave. Whether it's the loosey-goosey, I'm now a neo-Marxist goobers, right? I feel like Christians should have been more loving in X, Y, and Z situation. Or whether it's the Andrew Tates, I go to a Christian nation and I don't see any Christians acting like Christians, right? That is also the overflow of the same critique, right? So both sides of folks who leave the faith end up saying the same thing. And so maybe instead of lowering the bar and make it as easy as possible, maybe we say, hey, you're a newcomer here. We're happy you're here. You're welcome here. But here's the deal. Once you place your faith in Jesus, there are some things that should start looking different about your life.
It's game time.
It's game time. That's the beginning. He gives you a new heart and new desires because of the work of the cross. And now you get to, not you have to, but you get to step into church community. You get to plug into a small group Bible study. You get to serve your local body, serve the church. You get to serve your community. You get to lead your household and serve your household. You get to take the Bible more seriously. You get to grow and be conformed in the sanctification process of what God is doing. What if the very things that Christian culture often dismisses as worldly actually aren't bad desires? What do I mean by that? It's obvious that the world values things like money, fitness, fame, and immediate gratification. But I like to propose that those natural human desires can actually be redirected with God's words and God's ways of doing things in order to bring glory to Him and serve our neighbor on this side of eternity. And I like to call this very concept God-driven ambition. And we'll be unpacking all of this at my very first live podcast in-person gathering happening August 26th in Oceanside, California. We'll have GodLogic Apologetics, Pastor Jeff Moores from Rhythm Church, John Keith, Trizzle Fitness, and hosted by my guy Ray Rock. Lock it in on your calendars right now. Saturday, August 26th in Oceanside, California at Rhythm Church. Click the button down below or go to RuslanLive.com to get more information and get your ticket now. It would be like going to the gym and they're like, everyone that's at the gym that's selling you to get a trainer is all like 100 pounds overweight and has free donuts out for you. Who are we allowing to dictate the terms of what's happening in our faith communities? It's oftentimes lowering the bar, and then we look nothing like what Christians are supposed to look like. We look more like the world than we do Christians, and we start rationalizing and we start justifying things, and it's like, no, we should be different.
We forget that if you get rid of the rule, everybody runs, and then there's nothing to adhere to in the first place.
Exactly, and eventually we have nothing that we're standing on. Right, we're just on shifting sand. And again, I want to say that there's thousands who have not bowed the knee to Baal, and there are good, solid folks out there. But there was a movement really in the 80s and the 90s, the church growth movement, and you just basically described it to a T. It was all about doing whatever was necessary to get people into the doors, to keep people in churches. Were growing like gangbusters. All of a sudden, you've got churches all over the place, that are running thousands.
I'm not against people growing big churches. Just so we're clear, I am for growing big people, right? Growing mature people. But I am also cognizant of how we do things, because the how matters.
Well, whatever you do to get them is what you're going to have to do to keep them.
Whatever you do to get them is what you're going to have to do to keep them. If you have to water down the realities of what Scripture says to get people, you're going to have to keep watering down the reality of what Scripture says to keep people. If you have to water down and apologize for God, you got a lot of folks doing this. I know that marriage is supposed to be for one man and one woman, and I wish it wasn't this way. I wish God had another option. You're apologizing for the standards of God instead of just saying, this is what it is. These are the standards. Right? And if you have to apologize for God's standards, you're going to have to continuing apologizing for God's standards. You're going to have to continue watering stuff down. And that doesn't serve anybody well. Because if I'm trying to get in shape and get aligned with God, I don't need you telling me that I could have pizza and donuts. I can't. It is no longer in the cards for me to eat anywhere I want to sleep anywhere I want to drink whatever I want to look at whatever I want to. That is gone. I have been crucified with Christ. It is no longer I who live, right? And so we see folks that proclaim faith in Jesus, but live very sloppy lives. And we see how detrimental that could be.
And so the compromises just continued. But I'm hopeful. I do. I know a lot of those guys who haven't bowed the knee.
Yes.
And I run into people all the time who are looking for those guys.
Yeah.
They're saying, where are those guys near me? There are people who are finding those voices, and then they begin to look for other voices.
That's right. I want to go to this last clip from this. Voddie does a great job of kind of responding to some of the goofy stuff that comes out.
College student comes to your house and starts telling you that God doesn't exist, that the Bible was written by a bunch of idiots in caves thousands of years ago. How do you respond to that? What's your chief argument to people who are purporting to object to the Bible or object more broadly to the existence of God and his providence in the universe?
Yeah, what I want to do is I want to show them that that's all based on presuppositions. The last thing that I want to do is get down on their level and say, okay, fine, let's just leave that aside. No, I want to say to them, all of that is based on presuppositions. You're taking leaps of faith back there in order to get here and make that argument.
That's right.
Your presuppositions have been tried before, and they've led to catastrophe.
That's right.
Mine is based on presuppositions as well, but my presuppositions has led to Western civilization. The other thing that I want to say is, I'm not coming at this blind. I choose to believe the Bible because it's a reliable collection of historical documents written by eyewitnesses during the lifetime of other eyewitnesses.
That's right.
They report supernatural events that took place in fulfillment of specific prophecies, and they claim that their writings are divine rather than human in origin. We do not have a God who calls upon us for blind faith. We have a God who speaks. We have a God who has revealed himself.
It kind of glues both points together. We need to stop putting the bumpers up for people in the faith. We need to stop putting the training wheels on for Christianity, right? Why? Well, because how you live is going to determine how other people are engaging with you. And so if you have someone coming to you and they got all kinds of bizarre neo-Marxist, anarchist, we need to overthrow the establishment, capitalism's bad, the system's wrong, and they're saying all these things, and you're like, yeah, I'm a Christian, I believe in Jesus, I believe the Bible is inspired, I believe all these things are the bedrock of Western civilization, but your life looks like a train wreck. I think we need to raise the bar. I think we need to do a better job of calling young men and women to something more. And I think we'd be shocked that when you call people to more, how much they'll respond and rise to the occasion if they're truly born again and the Spirit of God lives in them. Hey, this is a segment from our daily after party stream. Consider partnering with us online for as little as $5 a month to get access to these daily after party streams completely unedited.
You'll also get access to our podcast as they are streamed live into the community before anyone else gets to see them, get to interact with our guests, get access to our private Discord server, and a discount code for our store for as little as $5 a month. Ultimately, that will help towards helping us continue contextualizing the gospel using media and podcast here on YouTube. All right, I'll see you over there. Peace.